Hello and welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me. This is STM's Bible study. We're going to continue our Bible study on today. We're going to continue with the book of Exodus. That's where we are currently in. We are currently in the book of Exodus, chapter 22. And so if you've been trekking with us and if you've been following the ministry, you know that we have been studying the book of Exodus. So welcome to the broadcast. I'm a little tired, but it just comes with the territory. But I appreciate all of you that support the channel, those of you that have been keeping up with this Bible study. And I just want to encourage you to continue studying God's word. First and foremost, before we go right into Exodus, the 22nd chapter, again, we're going chapter by chapter. And we're just pulling out, obviously all the things that we should know, be aware of, things that are important to God. I feel like every line, every word, every comma, every colon, every semicolon, every period, punctuation is important to God. Like, I really do believe that. I think every name, even the ones that we can't pronounce, are important to God. Every dispensation, every period of time is important to God. And so when we study the Bible, we have to study it like it's God giving us some intel, some information that He wants us to know that's important, even though we may look at it and say, can this really be applied to today, modern's day life and lifestyle? Again, I don't believe that anything that's shared in God's word is not beneficial. I believe everything that is shared is beneficial. So I just want to welcome you. And then also I wanted to share something with you. Peace and blessings. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't see who you are. I don't know why, but you're definitely welcome to the broadcast. Let me bring something to your attention. Let me show you a little something. I've been sharing with those that have been praying with me during times of our intercession, which is 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. We're going to be on a hiatus. I am personally, but I'm encouraging, the people of God, let's continue keeping on, keeping on. Let me share this with you and then we'll continue on with the broadcast. I want to share it now for those that won't be with us towards the end so that you'll be informed. This is by way of announcement, okay? So watch the video. That's all. We are taking a break. Yeah, I'm going on a hiatus for personal reasons. And so I just won't be able to do the job. I just won't. And so I want you guys to continue keeping on. Because this is probably going to be our last Bible study, like for like consistent, like ongoing chapter by chapter. But I'm gonna do several videos today. So like today we're gonna do this chapter and then I'm gonna come back on. I might record it and then upload it, or I might just do a live. It really depends on how I feel. The next video I'm going to do, I have to do it because I won't be able to do any videos for quite some time. And so I'm just trying to just touch the topics that need to be touched. Funny thing is that I pulled up a video that I made 8 years ago. For those of you all that subscribe to the Spreading Truth Ministry channel on YouTube, go check out the videos in the archives. Funny thing is that this stuff is still relevant today. It's still relevant. There's some people that posted last year. They're still setting dates. I think even this year they're still setting dates. We did a video 8 years ago talking about date setters, and so I'm going to do a revival of that video. I'm going to show some of the video and then I'm going to add some new content. That was 8 years ago. Yes, Jesus warned us of these things, and so we have to continue to sound the alarm. That's one of the reasons why the Lord gave me Spreading Truth Ministry, and our tag is John 17:17. Hey sis, I see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace and blessings. John 17:17, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. It's because a lot of people don't know the word. And so they don't know the truth. They don't know what's true. They don't know what to believe. They don't know who to follow. They're lost out here in these streets. And so it's so important that we cover these things because we don't want the people to be deceived. As a matter of fact, that's what Jesus said, right? When he began to break down in Matthew 24 all the signs of the end of the world and his imminent return. He began to tell them, and one of the things he told them, the first thing he told them is to be not deceived. All right. So we really have to be careful with the narratives that are being shared. And I know people want to sound deep, and I believe people believe that if they keep saying it, like eventually it will be true. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. If I keep saying it, then eventually it will be true. But unfortunately, God's word is true. That would make God's word false. And so, no, you know what I mean? We can try to predict all we want the return of Jesus or, certain things. But if God said that no one will know, that means that. And you're not going to mistakenly, predict it. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in another video, talking about the date setters, talking about things like that. So look out for that video. Let me just show you the thumbnail so that you can look out for it if I have it. I do. So look out for this thumbnail. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to revive the one that I made 8 years ago. So that'll be an easier video because I actually made the video, but I just want to add some content to that. And then also on tomorrow, I'm going to do another video. Like I said, I have to kind of like do what I can do up until the point that I can. Yeah, so on tomorrow, we're going to talk about Passover. We're going to talk about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're going to talk about all that jazz, the new moon. We're going to talk about all of that. Yeah, so look for that video. That's going to be on tomorrow. So that'll give me some time to breathe and to prepare and to share. And I believe I've already made some videos. So I might even pull some of that stuff out in the archives and just add more content to it. That's what I'll do because there's a lot of content on that YouTube page because I've been doing this YouTube for years. So there, every year I do like the same different topics in a different way because it is relevant from year to year. But I just kind of make it more culturally relevant maybe so that people can can relate to it. Anywho, today we're going to focus on, in this video at least, we're going to focus on Exodus, the 22nd chapter. Now remember, God gave his people his laws. He's establishing the children of Israel as a nation. And just like with any other country, within the country, there's all these jurisdictions, right? There's these towns, there's cities, you know what I mean? All of these communities, they have their laws, their ordinances. Every town just about has its ordinances. Every state has its laws and that sort of thing. And so what we're reading right now, we're in the midst of taking a deep dive into the stuff that the Almighty shared with his people. All right. And so it may not make sense, meaning that it's just going to be from this topic to that topic. And then it's going to go over here to this topic. And then it's going to touch on that topic. It's not going to be interconnected in some way. But this still is the mind of God and God sharing with his people the do's and the don'ts and God setting parameters on them so that they know how to please him. And because again, with any relationship, there are parameters, there's rules of engagement, you know what I mean? In any relationship, whether it be a parent-child relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship, you want the person that you're involved with to know what it takes to make you happy and what it takes not to make you unhappy, right? So the same thing with God. We're made in his image and in his likeness. So when we walk through these things, I don't want you to be shocked and awe because some of you, this may be your first time hearing these laws. Like these are laws. These are God's laws we're reading through. So you may be a little taken back, but this is good. All right. This is good. So we are sharing it from the Blue Letter Bible. And so I like the Blue Letter Bible because it's a really good studying tool. They should pay me for advertising. But anyway, I do like how they break it up, to these subtopics, to like property rights, and then moving on down to the other subtopic, which is sundry laws, and then on and on. But there's only two main topics. And here, they don't provide any scriptures, that will be parallel in this particular chapter. Okay, which is great. So we'll just be focusing on Exodus, the 22nd chapter. So just like we customarily do, I have it up so that we can have the audio. There's an audio Bible you can click on and have it narrated. I'm going to have it narrated for you. All you have to do is just follow along. If you happen to have a paper Bible, or if you just want to read along on your computer or on your device, you can do that too. So if you're ready, we're just going to read. We're going to start with, let's say, um, how about 1 through 3, and then we'll pause, and then we'll talk, and then we'll do 3 and 4, and then we'll do the same. We'll try to break it down based on the topics that are in those verses so that we can make it make sense. All right, are we ready? All right, let's go. Let's go.
Chapter 22. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be found breaking up, and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft.
All right, so let's pause there again. We're talking about property rights. So in the case of verses 1, 2, and 3, it says, if a man shall steal. So now we're talking about theft. We're talking about the violation there and what the consequences should be, depending on what's lifted or what's stolen. Okay, so here it says, if that man steals an ox, sheep, and kill it or sell it, all right, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, 4 sheep for sheep. This is the restitution. This is how this person should pay that person back that was caught in the act of stealing. Then it says that if a thief be found breaking up and be submitted that he died, and be smitten that he died, then there shall no blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. Now, what's interesting about that, it may sound real crazy, but we'll go over it. Again, it says, if a thief, I'm not quoting that, but I'm giving you kind of the summary of what it is in more of a today's language based on the Message version of that, where it says, if the thief is caught while breaking in. So this person is in the midst of breaking in, and this person is discovered and is hit hard. Okay, so like obviously they're breaking in and they're hit and they just so happen to die. There is no blood guilt. Like I'm not gonna be responsible for your death if you break into my house and trying to stop you from breaking in, you happen to die. I'm not gonna be held responsible for that. But then it says in the latter verse, it says, within 3, it says, but if it happens after daybreak, if you can see what's happening, if you can see what's going on, there is blood guilt, right? You're going to be responsible for the death of that person because, again, when it comes to God's laws, there's the principle there. It's this eye for an eye, this tooth for a tooth. It just has to make sense. The restitution or whatever the penalty or the consequence has to kind of match the crime, if you will. So you can't take a life of somebody for stealing something, essentially is what they're saying. But if it happens to happen and it's an accident, maybe you didn't intend on harming them. You know what I mean? But it was dark and you didn't see what was going on. You were just trying to prevent them from taking what belongs to you. You're not going to be responsible for that death. But if you happen to see them and it's light outside, then that's a different story. All right. So God is fair. God is fair. All right. And then the other part of 3 would be, if a thief a thief must make full restitution for what is stolen. So if this, obviously, if they were caught and they're alive, all right, so they have to restore. And here it says, the thief who is unable to pay is to be sold for thieving. So basically, if you stole something and you can't pay it back and you have nothing, then you're going to be sold into servitude. And then it said, if you're caught red-handed with the stolen goods and the ox and the donkey or the lamb is still alive, the thief will pay double. All right. So that's pretty much how it is translated, or what is translated to mean. Full restitution. And again, if he has nothing, then that person will be sold into slavery, essentially. All right. All right. We're moving on.
If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or the...
All right, let's pause. Let's go back to verse 5. Okay. Now it says, if someone, this is again a transliteration in the Message version of that. If someone grazes livestock in a field or vineyard, but lets them loose so that they graze into someone else's field, then the restitution must be made for the best of the owner's field and vineyard. So again, accidents happen. And when an accident happened, in this case, you have some livestock, they're grazing. Somehow they got let loose and they went into somebody else's field and they begin to graze. Then you have to repay them back. You have to restore what they ate from the best of what you have. Okay, you can't give them the what you don't want, the scraps, and you know what I mean. You have to give them the best one. It doesn't matter what they ate. They may have they may have eaten the remnants, they may have eaten what was the raggedy part of the field. It doesn't matter. You have to pay them what would be considered your best. All right, so that's verse 5. Now verse 6 talks about a fire breaking out. All right, so let's go back there. It began to read that if fire break out and it catches thorn, so that the stacks of the corn, let's continue to read,
standing corn or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution.
Okay, and I think that one is common sense. If you started the fire, then guess what? You got to take care of the damage of it, right? If it breaks out, it spreads into the bushes and the sheaves and the grain and all that, and it's all burnt up, then whoever started the fire have to pay for the damages. That's kind of common sense, right? All right, moving on.
If a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he have put his hand unto his neighbor's goods.
Pause. All right, so now it's 7 and 8. Now we're talking about trust issues here. So in verse 7 and 8, the transliteration of that in the Message, it says, if someone gives a neighbor money or things for safekeeping, and they are stolen from that neighbor's house. How many of us have been through that, where we've given somebody, oh, can I borrow this? And they take it, oh, it's gone. I'm not, whatever, right? It's stolen from the neighbor's house. Okay. The thief, if caught, must pay back double. And if the thief is not caught, the owner must be brought before God. So it's important for that person, whoever was, whatever it was, the possession is what 5/10 of the law, whatever. If the thing that you borrowed is in your possession, it's your responsibility to find out what happened to it. Okay. All right. So let's say you discovered somebody who took it, the neighbor's house, the thief was caught. That thief must pay back double what they took. If the thief is not caught, if you don't know how it disappeared, right, the owner must be brought before God to determine whether the owner was the one who took the neighbor's goods. And again, people say this all the time. Let's say they borrow something, whether it's a hat or electronic device or whatever. Oh, I can't find it. Oh, somebody must have took it, or whatever the case may be. If a person can't be discovered, the thief can't be discovered, or someone that you claim that took it or whatever, then you're going to be the one that's going to be on trial to see if you took it. And if you did, then you're going to be held responsible. All right.
For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost thing, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor.
Okay, so now it says it doesn't really matter here in verse 9, what the thing is, right? In the cases of stolen goods, whether it's oxen, donkeys, sheep clothing, anything in fact missing which someone says that's mine, both parties must come before the judges of Israel for them to make a determination. The one the judge pronounces guilty must pay double to the other. All right. So again, restitution. You see, that's the name of the game, right? The kind of theme throughout. They're not going to jail. They're not the only person that it's so far that's having to be not really in prison, but they have to serve time is the person that cannot afford to pay the cost of restitution. Then that person has to essentially work it off, right, for free. And that makes sense. If you can't afford to pay the restitution for what was taken or what was damaged or whatever the case may be, then it's only right that you work for free to, to repay that debt. All right. So let's move on to verse 10.
If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he hath not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept thereof, and he shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. And
All right, let's pause there for just a moment. What is that? 10 through 13. All right, so 10 through 13. If someone gives a donkey or an ox or a lamb or any kind of animal to another for safekeeping, and it dies and is injured or lost, and there is no witness, no one can confirm or, an oath before the Lord must be made between them to decide whether one has laid hands on the property of the other. The owner must accept this. No damages are assessed. But if it turns out that it was stolen and then the owner must be compensated. If it has been torn by a wild beast or torn by an animal, it must be brought in as evidence and no damages have to be paid. So I guess they're saying, obviously, if something happens where you were given to something and to know, it's not your fault that something happened to it, then obviously there would be you don't have to worry about um, really taking care of the damages of that. But again, if they try, you have to work out something. If it was in your possession, it's only right that there be some type of compensation. All right, so 14 through 15. Let's move down. We're moving through this kind of fast. Again, these are some of the laws, and to me, it just makes life a little bit more easier when you know how matters are going to be settled. You know what I mean? Because things come up, in those days and times, taking somebody's ox and stuff like that, that's, listen, that produces, crop for them and allows them to multiply and to be fruitful. Like that's serious. You know what I mean? That's serious. So that's why these things are on the books when you see these properties, and they're really naming them because they are important, whether it's used for sacrifice or used for consumption or used for, for them to produce goods and that sort of thing, to make a livelihood. These things are important. So you have to know how these things should be settled.
And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good, if it be an hired thing, it came for his hire. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed.
All right, let's pause there for 14 and 15. All right, just so that we can have complete clarity on what's being said. It says, if someone borrows an animal from a neighbor and it gets injured or dies while the owner is not present, he must pay for it. Okay, so he borrows an animal. Hey, neighbor, can I borrow your ox? Got a big job here. Something happens to it, gets injured, it dies, then he's got to pay for it. Makes sense. If the owner was with it, he doesn't have to pay the animal. If the animal was hired, the payment covers the cost. So essentially, if you're hiring it, whatever you paid for will cover the cost for the animal if something happens to it. All right, so now we're moving on to more of the relational things, and the interaction between people, groups, and that sort of thing. All right, let's listen closely. Some of this stuff may sound harsh, but God has his reasons. And then we also have to understand that, it may not make sense to us, but there's a sovereignty aspect to this. You know what I mean? And an all-knowingness aspect to this. We're talking the mind of God, and the God's mind. Again, this is God's mind. God is sharing his mind with his people of how they should govern themselves based on his infinite wisdom, right? And so we may not understand, well, why did he say that? I don't understand to be honest with you, I'm just going to be frank. It doesn't really matter, like, what we believe or feel or think, to be honest. Like, we're the ones that are his people. We are not his God. And I know that, especially in this dispensation of time, that sounds harsh. Like, we we have a hard time receiving that, because in this dispensation of time, we want everything explained to us. Like, we want to know why. Why is that important? Where's the relevance? I don't understand. But hey, to us, we're gonna have to understand some things better by and by. God may break it down when we meet him or come see him. When the time comes, when we see him face to face, if we see his face in peace, we can have those conversations about these laws and things and the people groups and all this other stuff. We can, kind of like poke him, like in sense of like asking him questions and just kind of sitting and being at all at his responses. But until then, it's important that we just simply adhere, right, to the wisdom that has been shared, because I believe there is definitely some wisdom to what it is that we're about to read here. Now, we're going to find this interesting. Let's continue on. Let me just go back a little bit if I can. Hold on.
And lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. And if her father utter.
Hold on a moment. So verse 16 is what I started playing, and we didn't hear all of it. It says, if a man entice a maid. All right. So if he tries to entice her, draws her in, what have you, right? That is not betrothed. Okay. Obviously, she's not engaged to anybody. And he lied with her. Okay. So he's attracted to her and he's trying to throw game or whatever, right? And so she's not with anyone, she's not tied to anybody, and he sleeps with her. When it says lie, meaning he's had sex with her. All right, these are the rules of engagement. This is according to God's law. It says here that he shall surely endow her to be his wife. So what's interesting here is that you don't see a consequence of death, even though they committed fornication. And obviously the man is the one that's, leading in this. Then if you want to sleep with her, then you gotta marry her. That's what it says here in verse 16. Okay, so if you are a believer, take heed. If you are interested in somebody and you're attracted to them and you want to take them out and one thing leads to another and you happen to sleep with them, God says you should marry her. If you want to sleep with her, if you're drawn to her, if you're attracted to her and you entice her to lay with you, then she should be your wife. You should make her your wife. So this modern age of dating and how we move and it's okay to sleep, no, that's not how. No, if you sleep with that person, you should marry them. All right. Now let's continue to listen. Let me see if there's any other interpretation of that. All right. Let me read verse 17, then I'll give you the other interpretation. Let's listen.
Utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins.
Now, this woman, let's just keep it in, this maid was a virgin. All right. This is a virgin. And you took her virtue, you took her virginity. All right. The only right thing to do is for you to marry her. All right. Now, it says in 17, if the father's like, no, you did this to my daughter, you didn't get engaged to her or anything. You just seduced her, you slept with her. I don't want you to marry my daughter. Now, When you consider this dispensation of time, that brought shame to a woman for her virtue or her virginity to be taken from her. Most men did not want her after that, regardless of the circumstances. So please understand, if the father made that type of decision for whatever his reasons were, and rightly so, because he's protecting his daughter, he didn't appreciate what that person did or what have you. But they say, they talk about it now in terms of the high value man and high value woman. It's like her value depreciates if she loses her virginity. So it's going to be more difficult for her to be betrothed again, or to be, engaged, or for somebody to want her, knowing that she's been with somebody else prior to. So that's going to put her in a situation altogether. Like, that's going to put her in a bad way. So hopefully dad is doing the right thing and he's just not being moved with anger. But let's do the transliteration according to the Message. It says, if a man seduce a virgin who is not engaged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the marriage price and marry her. Okay, so the dowry is the married price. That's what I'm saying. This day and age, a lot of people are moving all kinds of ways because we don't have any real governance. We don't have these types of traditions and customs, which I believe we kind of need, because I feel like people will move differently if we did have this stuff in place. Because if you're gonna think twice about having sex with somebody, because you're gonna be like, yo, if I do this, then I have to be forced to marry this person. You're going to think twice, because not only do you have to marry that person, but you're going to have to pay that dowry, that marriage price to marry that person. So not only do you have to marry them, but you have to pay the cost to do it. So if you're not in a financial way or position to be able to afford to do that, then you shouldn't touch a woman. To me, that's a good principle. Don't even touch a woman. Don't even engage. Don't seduce nobody. Don't do nothing unless you're ready to marry that person. Until you're ready to pay the price, her dowry, to take on the role of a head over her. If you're not ready financially or otherwise, then don't touch her. To me, that's a great principle. That is wisdom, right? That's good stuff. I'm in 100% in agreement with the word of God, like for real. Okay. Then it says here that if her father absolutely refuses to give her away, and again, you have to think about the rights of a woman here in this situation, because it's going to be difficult for her to really move forward in life if he does not marry her, being that her virginity was taken from her. Then the man must still pay the marriage price for virgins. So he still has to pay the price. And yeah, she's going to get some coins, but look at how she's going to be looked at in society at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Again, her values become lessened because she's already got the price paid to her for the price of a virgin at this point, even though she's not getting married. So it's going to be difficult for her to move forward. All right. So let's move on to verse 18. All right. This is the one that somebody quoted to me recently.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Pause. All right. So we went from, let me see. We went from the man enticing the maid and the marriage, and if you don't, and what the consequences would be, all the way to verse 18, which is not have anything to do with anything relational at all, for the exception of a witch. Now, what I want to do is I want to click on that, and you know that provides us all of the tools, right? When we click on that verse, when we're using the Blue Letter Bible and we're on the website or we're using the app, it provides us the tool. One of the things I want us to look at is the witch. All right, so let's get the transliteration of the word witch in the Hebrew. All right, when we click on that, we get that Strong's code of 3784. That's the transliteration of the word witch. And here it says sorcerers. All right, this is the translates. It translates to mean sorcerers, witch, or witchcraft. All right. Now it says to practice witchcraft or sorcery, to use witchcraft. A sorcerer, sorceress, that would be obviously the female form of the word. It says to whisper a spell, to enchant, or practice magic. All right, moving down to some more of the transliteration of the word, the definitions of the word. All right, so we have several scriptures that would support the practice of sorcery. I think we read it. We read something similar on last night, but this is Chronicles 33:6, Second Chronicles. He that causes his children to pass through the fire of the valley of the son of Henna. Also, he observed times, used enchantments, used witchcraft, dealt with familiar spirits and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. All right. And then we have Deuteronomy 18 and 10. I think that's what we read on last night. I'm sorry, was it this morning? No, it was this morning for prayer. Deuteronomy 18 and 10, there shall not be found among you anyone that makes his son or daughter to pass through the fire. This is a part of the occult practice is human sacrifice. All right. And so that's what they did. That was a part of their ceremony. So that's why God speaks of it. All right. Not allow your son or daughter to pass through the fire, or useth divination, or an observer of times. And that's what's going on with this whole thing with the what they're calling it the blood moon, but it's really the eclipse. And a lot of that is all connected to those that practice the observer of times. They have meanings all associated with those things. Okay, so it's deep. And enchantment and or the witch. All right, again, it shall not be found among you. All right, and then we have Exodus 22. Again, we're reading that now. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. And then it also goes into Malachi 3 and 5. It says, I will come near to you to judgment. I will be swift witness against the sorcerers. And when he says swift witnesses, basically, again, what is the consequence for practicing witchcraft? It is death. So he said, I'll be a swift witness against the sorcerer, against the adulterers, against false swearers, against those that oppress the hireling of his wages, and et cetera, and et cetera. So God is not playing. It says, or the divinators, astrologers, and stuff like that. All right. Talked about Pharaoh and his sorcerers, Daniel 22, the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, all of them are looked at as the same. All right. So that just gives us some sense of what witchcraft, sorcery, what God is making reference to when he's referencing the witch and suffer the witch, not suffer the witch to live, which means obviously that one is plain, to take the life of the witch. All right, so let me see if there's anything else. Okay, so in the Message, the transliteration of that would be, don't let a sorcerer live. All right, so that was the consequence if you practice witchcraft. So when you look at or you read the book Scarlet Letter, what are the other, the Crucibles and all these other things, especially when you're talking about Americas. That's why it was so crucial. Like, people were they were manipulating the masses, falsely accusing people of witchcraft. And because this particular scripture was there, people used that as a tool to manipulate, to falsely, if they didn't like somebody, then they will falsely accuse them of witchcraft, right? Because they knew the consequence would be death. And so people, that's what I'm saying. The mind of man, the Bible talks about the heart is desperately wicked above all. Who would know it but God? And so people take these scriptures, you know what I mean, and they manipulate them. And so God knows that too. And so that's why we have to really be careful. That's why with all these judgments, you can't just accuse someone of something. And that's one of the things I do like about these laws. It cannot be just an accusation, but it has to be proven. The Bible talks about in the eyes of 2 or 3 witnesses, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, people witness, the eyewitness, right? People that see it, let every word be established. So it's not just saying, oh, I don't like her, she's a witch. Okay, okay, we got to kill her. Nah, you got to be able to prove that before that consequence happens. All right, moving on. All right.
Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death.
All right, so now we have some reference on bestiality. Now let's go into lie, because somebody may say, well, sis, what is he saying? Is he saying I can't sleep with my dog? Like my cat can't, jump on my bed, and I can't nestle, next to them, and be comforted by them and stuff like that. So what does the word lieth mean? What does that mean? Okay. All right. So here it's sexual in relation. Okay. To lay sexually. All right. That's what it's interpreted to mean. It doesn't mean to lay down for rest or whatever like that. You know what I mean? He means sexually. So if a person sleeps, and what's happening is in this dispensation of time, there are some areas, some parts of the world, even some parts of this country, where they're trying to put laws on the book that say that it's okay to marry certain animals. It's okay to, do these things. Yeah, it's disgusting. So no, God said that it's not even going to be a conversation. If you are caught doing this, this is what the consequences are going to be. Okay, so the penalty is death.
He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed.
All right, so we have the witch can't live. We have the person that sleeps with the beast gotta die. Now we have verse 20 that says, if you sacrifice to any god, for the exception of the Lord, Yahweh, then he shall be utterly destroyed. So again, when it comes to idolatry or any type of practice like that, when it comes to witchery or sorcery, when it comes to sleeping with animals, and these are oftentimes things done in the occult as a practice, all right? Um, yeah, you won't be spared if you do these things. And so Israel was aware. They were aware because these laws were read to them. And then so a lot of times people say, especially during this dispensation of time in the Old Testament, that God, there was no grace. Not so. If God is telling you before you do it, don't do it, then that's the grace, right? That's where the grace is. You know what I mean? If God is saying don't do it, and you decide I'm gonna do it anyway, then you chose death. Like you did that. Like that's not God. So let's be clear. When we read this thing, we may clutch our pearls, like, oh, take their life, like they can't live. But you're choosing this though, because God is warning you. You're being given again how to go in and out before God, how to go in and out before one another, how to treat one another. God is giving you the rules of engagement. If you choose going forward, again, he's giving his people these commandments and these laws and these judgments to move the opposite or whatever, then you're the one that's choosing death. God is not choosing to give you death. You're choosing the consequence of death when you're choosing to do these things. All right. So I just want to make that clear, because, and I see that as being grace. If God's saying, hey, if you do this, then this is what's going to be the consequence. Like, you helping me out. He didn't have the consequence after you did it and you didn't know that that was on the book as a law. Then that would be like, oh, I feel tricked. I didn't know. So God is a just God. That's why we read all the time in the scriptures of how just he is, right? So this is God's being just, telling us what time it is so that we don't violate these rules, and then we don't have to suffer these type of consequences. All right, we're in verse 21 and we're almost done. Verse 21.
Thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt.
All right, so now we got how we should treat the stranger. Now let's look into the transliteration of the word vex, because a lot of times y'all be vexing me. No, it says vex, to oppress, to suppress, to treat violently, to do wrong. Okay, to oppress, maltreatment. All right, and the violence is attached to it. So God is saying, yeah, no, you all were once a stranger, so this is how you should not treat strangers. You can't oppress him, you can't vex him. All right, Why? Because you were strangers once, so that you can't do that. And if you're done, it didn't say really the consequences for that in that, but he's telling them that they should not entreat a stranger in that way. Don't abuse them. Don't take advantage of strangers. Remember that you were once strangers. All right. So if we are the people of God and you see some people amongst our community mistreating or taking advantage of strangers, because oftentimes we take advantage of strangers because they don't know the laws or they don't know certain things, they're ignorant of certain things, and so we try to manipulate and take advantage of the fact that they don't know something. We're not supposed to do that as the people of God. All right. All right, here's some other do's and don'ts when it comes to uh interpersonal relationships.
You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child, if thou.
I think that's common sense. Don't afflict the widow. Don't afflict a fatherless child. Now, this is what's interesting, and honestly, there's a lot of people amongst, especially believers, that do foster care. Those that are taking care of foster care children, y'all better be careful how y'all take care of these kids in the foster care system. Those of you all that are foster parents or adoptive parents, be careful how you take care of these fatherless children, and how you, and even how you handle widows amongst us. Let's read the rest of that.
Afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot. And I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless.
Now that's deep now. Okay, so again, this is verses 22 through 24, dealing with the how to handle widows and the fatherless. It says, don't mistreat widows and orphans. If you do, and they cry out to me, you can be sure that I'll take them most seriously, and I will show my anger and come raging among you with the sword, and your wives will end up widows and your children orphans. So that lets us know, look, God don't play when it comes to children that are fatherless, widows. God don't play. If he hears their cry, if we mistreat them. So I know that there is this thing, this stigma attached to children that are in foster care or children that are orphans. But we, the people of God, have to embrace them like they are our own. And we can't mistreat them, because if we do, there will be a severe punishment for mistreating them. Now, this may have been the first time some of us have heard about this. God don't play about the fatherless, and God don't play about widows. He doesn't. And not only that, he makes it required for us as the household of faith to take care of them. He said, as far as pure and undefiled religion, in order for our religion to be pure, according to the word, and undefiled, we have to take care of the fatherless and the widows. So if you are a part of ministries that don't have an agenda or some type of, mission geared towards that segment of population, then they're living beneath their privileges as believers. That is really one of the core responsibilities, in addition to seeing about the sick, seeing about, those that are in prison, clothing the naked, feeding the hungry. All those things are things that we're supposed to do. That's how we're supposed to function here on earth. We're supposed to be about our Father's business, in addition to sharing the gospel. All right. And so I just really wanted to highlight that, because I think that that's extremely important to know, that God don't play about the fatherless and widows at all. We're at verse 25.
If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury.
All right. So now we're talking about lending money as believers. All right. This is verse 25. Right. This is translated. If you lend money to my people, to any of the down and out among you. People that are, I'm telling you, don't have it. That's why you borrowing it, clearly, right? Don't come down hard on them and gouge them with interest. You already know they're vulnerable. You know they don't have the money and they're asking for you to borrow X amount of money. You don't, get put on excess interest on the money. You know they can't, you don't have the money to pay it back, barely to pay it back. All right, so we aren't to do that. And unfortunately, that's how our systems are set up. Interests are extremely high, right? But they aren't the people of God, though. But we're the people of God. And so this is how we should move. If somebody borrows money from us, or if we're lending money out, then make sure that you don't overtax them for them to pay it back to you. All right. This is what the word of the Lord says.
Oh, take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down. For that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin, wherein shall he sleep. And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me, that I will hear, for I am gracious. Thou shalt not.
All right. So now we're at verse 26 and 27. If thou should take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, I promise to bring it back. Can I borrow this? I'll give it back to you. He said you got to give it back by nightfall. How many people have had people borrow stuff and never return it? You never got it back. To this day, I haven't gotten stuff back. But in particularly, if they borrow a coat. Now, the transliteration in the message is, if you take your neighbor's coat as a security, oh, can I borrow? Give it back before nightfall. It may be your neighbor's only covering. You don't know. Maybe that is the only coat that they have available. What else does the person have to sleep in, or whatever the case may be? If I hear the neighbor crying from the cold because you refuse to give them back their coat, I'll step in. I'm compassionate. So again, God is just giving them, listen, a warning. Treat your neighbor with dignity. If you say you're going to take something from them, especially if it's something that they need, like a covering or raiment, make sure you give it back to them. Make sure that you return it. If you don't, then guess what? I'm going to come in and I'm going to judge the matter. All right. All right.
Not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits, and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy son shalt thou give unto me.
All right, so
Likewise
let's pause there. Sorry. Verse 28 and then 29. They don't go together. Okay, so in verse 28, it says, don't curse God, nor damn your leaders. All right. Don't curse God, nor damn your leaders. We really got to be careful with our mouths, because a lot of us get frustrated and a lot of things come out that ought not to. We are not supposed to curse God. We're not supposed to even damn our leaders, to say, oh, I can't, talk against them. We're not supposed to do that. All right. And then it says, don't be stingy as your wine vats fill up. All right. So don't be stingy, be liberal. Talking about don't revile your goods. Don't curse the ruler of the people. Verse 29, don't delay to offer the first of the ripe fruits of the liquor. The firstborn of thy son shall you give to me. So that's kind of separate. The firstborn. All right. So of course, when God brought them out of Egypt, we know that last plague was the sparing of the firstborn. Remember, God says that as a token, they had to offer up their firstborn, meaning they had to basically, 3 times out of the year, they have to present themselves before the Lord. The firstborn had to present themselves before the Lord. Again, as a reminder of how God spared them. So the dedication of the firstborn sons, you have to do that. And then you also have to do the same with your cattle and your sheep. They are to stay 7 days with their mother, and then you're to give them to me, and be holy for his sake. So again, this is as a result of God sparing the firstborn. Now they are to be dedicated unto the Lord because of the sparing of them, and not just of people, humans, but also of your cattle and your sheep. All right. And then the last verse, hold on, y'all.
with thine oxen, and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it me, and ye shall be holy men unto me. Neither shall ye eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs.
All right, so that was the last verse, verse 31. It says, you have to be holy, right? We have to be holy. He says, don't eat of flesh that has been torn by beasts in the field. Okay, God is telling them, don't do that. If you happen to discover some, let's say, some deer that happened to be, it wasn't completely eaten, but it was, maybe a lion tore into it, but it's still some meat there, that you're not supposed to take that deer and then, cook it up and eat it. That's not proper. He said, give it to your dogs. All right, so that's unclean. You're not to do that. All right. So that concludes chapter 22. I'm going to miss doing this. I'm going to have to put a peg in it though, okay? So, as I forestated, for those that may not know, I'm going to go on a hiatus for personal reasons. I won't be able to come back on until the Lord says so. But in the meanwhile, I want to encourage you to keep moving forward. All right. So keep reading your Bible. It's so much there, aren't you? I mean, for me, this is such a blessing to just kind of go back. And for me, it's a review because I have read these books already multiple times. But I enjoy reading them because, again, the Bible talks about in Psalms, and Proverbs, how we should like meditate on his word day and night. And it talks about how we should hide his word in our heart so we won't sin against them. It's like, again, when you know the do's and don'ts, living life will be a whole lot easier. You know what I mean? Going in and out before his people will be a whole lot easier when you know the rules of engagement. Oh, I can't, I just borrowed that coat. I got to make sure I give it back. You know what I'm saying? I can't mistreat that child that's fatherless. Like, I have to make sure I treat them right, because if they cry out to God, God's going to get me. Like, oh, wow, I can't mishandle that maiden and entice them and sleep with them and take their virginity, or I'm going to have to marry them and give them a dowry. I can't afford to pay that, so I can't touch that woman. You know what I mean? That helps to govern you. It helps you to know how to move. If I take something that belongs to me, there's going to be consequences. Like, I'm going to have to repay it. Like, if I don't have it now to buy it on my own, then I can't take somebody else's. I can't covet somebody else's stuff, or there's going to be a consequence for that. It just helps us to govern ourselves, right? It really, truly helps us. And so I really do appreciate the word. I'm not like those other folks that look at it as if it's a burden, because it's not. It's actually wisdom. You know what I mean? It's his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light into our path. Like, it illuminates, like it helps us to really know how to move and navigate in this world, and how to treat one another with love and grace and kindness. You know what I mean? Even down to the stranger. He's like, listen, don't mistreat them. Like, you were a stranger once too. God covers the gamut. And so we're going to continue reading this. I'm just going to put a pin in chapter 22, but I'm going to continue to just read on, and then we're just going to continue on when I come back. I don't plan on being away too long, but I do plan on being away for a little bit. All right. But I want you all to continue to keep me lifted in prayer. All right. So, what I'm going to do this weekend, though, because I'm going to be gone for a while, I'm going to try to produce as much content as possible. So, I'm going to revisit some of the videos that I've already done, like in time past, videos about the feast days. I'm going to revisit the date setting. I don't know if you all have stumbled upon this video, but I actually just shared it before I went on live. But I did a video 8 years ago talking about date setting and warning people about date setting, and how people are saying, oh, Jesus is going to come back on this date. Oh, Jesus is going to come back because this is going to happen. The stars are lining up. And then because, no, friends, you have to be ever so careful with that. God warns us of that. That's not something we should do. The Bible is clear in regards to us not knowing the day nor the hour of the return of the Son of Man. Nobody's going to know when Jesus is going to return. I don't care how prophetically deep you are. You will not get that for a word. If you happen to, it's not coming from Yahweh. It's not coming from the Lord. It's not. It's coming from another source, and you're being deceived. It's definitely a strong delusion there, because a lot of people have created a lot of scenarios and situations and harm to people doing stuff like that. And unfortunately, they're not going to stop. I had people literally making comments under that video that I made 8 years ago. Hey, they're still setting dates, and that was like last year. I said they're going to continue to do these things because Jesus warned us not to be deceived. So it's a deceptive tactic that the enemy is going to use to cause, again, the hearts of people, to be faint, the love of many to wax cold, because of these false prophets and teachers. This is a part of the narrative, unfortunately, of the end times. So as frustrating as it is to hear people do that, and then we have to counteract that with the truth, we have to continue to stay on our posts and shed light on that's error. That's the spirit of error. It's a strong delusion. It is not of God. We don't know the day. If anybody's declaring a day, people are going to continue to do that until they get it right. You know what I mean? And they're not going to, because God knows the heart of every man. Every man, literally, he knows our mind. He knows what we think. Our heart is desperately wicked. Above all, you will not be able to deceive God. You can't. You won't. You can't. So that's that. All right, so that ends the Bible study. We're on a hiatus. Shout out to all those that are watching with me. Shout out to you, sis. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And our Facebook user, I can't stand when they don't share the name of the person watching, but I do appreciate you watching, Facebook user. And for those that will be checking out the replay, don't forget, we need traction on these types of videos. All the videos that share the word of God, we want people to get access to. The best way to get access to, the best way to sow to the ministry is to like the videos, to make a comment, right? If you can tag, if you can share, and make sure that you subscribe, right, to our YouTube channels. I have several. And if somebody's out there sharing the truth, they're sharing God's word, you should support it, right? We should, you know what I mean? If they're sharing, especially if they're literally sharing the word, they're not their commentary, not their thoughts, but they're sharing the word, you should make that available to your friends and to your family. All right. And then we will continue on. I'm going to make a video next, probably not in the next hour, but sometime this evening. I'm going to go back to the video that I made 8 years ago, and I'm going to update it. And we're going to talk about beware of the date setters. All right. So look forward to that. And then I'm going to revisit some videos that I did in time past about Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're going to talk about that as well, and God's biblical calendar and the feast days and the holy days. We're going to revisit that as well, and whatever else the Lord puts on my heart until the day that I decide that we're going to, it's time for me to have the hiatus. And this is my okay. So make sure to keep me in prayer. All right. Okay. I appreciate you too. God bless you immensely. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, like I forestated. And like I said, don't forget to like the video. Okay. Give us plenty of likes and some hearts if you feel inclined. And that's all that we're going to talk about today. And the next time we come on and do STM Bible study, it will be still on the book of Exodus, and we're going to move forward to chapter 23. But again, I'm encouraging you to continue to move forward. And that's that. And then we're going to just talk about what's currently happening, discuss that about the blood moon and all those other stuff. That's what we're going to talk about when we talk about date setting. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the occultism that's all connected to that stuff. In just a moment, I'm going to create a video for that. I may do a live or do a video depending on how I feel. And so you're welcome to watch that and or support that video. And then on tomorrow, I'm going to do some more. I'm going to create some more content to leave. So y'all have plenty of content while I am resting. I appreciate the hearts. So you all keep me lifted in prayer, and I will do the same for you. Until next time, God bless you, and shalom.